convinced that John Milton is our nation's greatest poet.
Excuse me?
But pretty extensive field research on a bridge reveals...
Who's that?
No idea.
...that most people can't even recognise the poor chap.
Do you recognise that man?
No. If I were to say John Milton to you, what comes into your head?
Nothing.
Not a thing. Has anyone here heard of John Milton? Anyone? What image do you have in your head of John Milton?
Gloomy.
Gloomy?
Yes.
OK.
Long-winded.
Long-winded?
Miserable.
Miserable. What makes you seem miserable?
It's the connotation of Paradise Lost, which you think is going to be miserable. I haven't read it, but
Okay.
I think...
Actually, it's anything but. Paradise Lost is an electrifying poem about love and war, the fight between good and evil, and an obsession with human freedom that speaks to us now.
In 1967, the sculptor Richard Serra, fascinated by the process of making art, wrote down a list of verbs.
To roll, to crease, to fold, to store, to bend, to shorten, to twist, to dapple.
Then he enacted those verbs, making work that related to them.
To fire, to flood, to smear, to rotate, to swirl, to support.
In many ways, that's what he's been doing ever since.
To tear, to chip, to split, to cut, to swerve, to drop, to remove, to simplify, to differ.
These days, at nearly 70 years old, Richard Serra is recognized as one of the world's greatest living artists.
Of tension, of gravity, of entropy, of nature, of grouping, of layering.
This is the story of how a boy from a blue-collar background has taken sculpture off its pedestal and in doing so created some of the most controversial and admired art of our times.
Of mapping, of location, of context, of time, of carbonization, to continue, fuck off.
Your father worked in a shipyard. Also, your mother was Jewish at a particular time in history, which it's difficult for a child growing up.
Oh, I can tell you how difficult. I lived in an area of about 20 square miles that was nothing but sand dunes. Once they started building the roads and they started putting in the buildings, I remember some workers asking me, who are you and where are you from? And my mother said to me at that time, don't tell those people you're Jewish, because you don't understand, even though the war is winding down, people like us are being fried in Germany. So basically, I was raised in the kind of deceit about who I was, where my parents came from. But I don't think that was unusual for people of my generation. And it probably wasn't until I went to Yale in New York, where there's a large population of Jewish people, where I felt that to be Jewish amongst Jewish people, or to be Jewish amongst anybody, was particularly okay.
Your first mum died when you were very little. Now things are getting complicated because you want to wear your dad's cross and stuff. I think your mum's scared that then you'll be closer to God and your real mum in heaven. But sure that you can still be there for her, but with God as well.
Are y'all ready for the Big Daddy Kane? Make some noise! The smoothest man alive. He gets raw. He sets it off.
All right, we're ready to do this. Let's go. Rough, rugged, and real. You won't stand still. To obey your case and let the man build. Words of rapture that you have to capture. And I just slapped ya. This is a world premiere and I'm here. A presentation beyond compare. MC step to the rear as I break through. Girls say ooh and then skip to my loo. That means dances I get smooth with. Poetic perfection that you can prove with. I gotta maintain and accelerate my brain. God damn, it's hard being the game.